Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ARPneuro Q&A. Once again, my name is Jake. I'm your ARPneuro trainer, and as always, we are with Matt Dell. Matt, good to see you again, sir.
Great to see you. Sorry, I wasn't organized enough to have a rapper's name because I was a little late with the technically challenged computer I have. So,
wow, I tell you, maybe Matt Dell's the sign. Maybe you are a rapper. So,
well, I don't know. I don't know if I can sing, but all good stuff.
All right, excellent. So before we get started, we're going to go ahead and fire up this real quick. And then, Matt, if you wanted to run through that, just let me know.
Absolutely. Appreciate it. Right. I know we have quite a few different groups of people on tonight's Q&A. So what I wanted to do is I just got a text from somebody asking where did it go. So I don't know if they're on or not. But unfortunately, I'm doing this from my phone. So what I wanted to do is just give everybody that a little overview of ARPneuro, just for those that do not know anything about us, just a very quick rundown. The technology that we're going to be talking about has been around for over 20 years in the U.S. It's got a huge success rate of helping people come back from injuries, prevent injuries. The company that developed this technology is a company out of Minnesota, and they spent a majority of their time focusing on all the NFL teams, professional athletes. And so you can go to the next slide. So really this technology has been around, and you've probably, if you've heard of it, it's been on a tremendous amount of shows. If you've been to our website, we've started listed some of the professional athletes and some of the trade journals and TV shows that they've been on. But what we've done is my old business partner, he basically got a hand injury fixed and could not believe this wasn't everywhere. So he set up distribution so he can take this the technology that professional athletes have used and really bring it to everyday college athletes, weekend warriors like myself. I got personally exposed to it. You can go to the next slide. When my son, in this slide, broke his tibia and fibula in about the fourth game of his senior year high school football season. And I was told that if he went and did 20 sessions of the ARP, he would not have neuropathy in his muscles and his legs, and he'd be able to make it back for his basketball season that same year. And I thought absolutely not, but we did it. He did 20 treatments and was blown away. That's actually him not only playing in this last 5 games of the season, but they played him in the playoffs with a rod between his knee and his ankle. And there's no way that he would have been able to do that without this technology. So I have a personal exposure to it, and can't believe, like Chip and probably most of the people I talk to, how this isn't known by everybody. So that's our goal, is to just kind of educate, answer questions. We've got a lot of people on tonight that have a PRS, and so I think they're excited to ask questions. I think we're going to get bombarded, Jake, with a lot of questions. This next slide is an example. Logan University, they had a team, did an extremely deep dive due diligence. They have now, they're blown away by the technology and the outcomes of this. So they've actually opened up a clinic. It's now part of their curriculum. And just as a quick overview, really there's 2 products. We have an RX 100, which needs that. We have a lot of clinics across the country, and it's a licensed physician needs to be utilizing that technology. And then we have the PRS, which we're going to be focusing on tonight, which is over the counter. It's FDA approved, does not need a physician to utilize it. It's the exact same technology. The only difference is the RX 100 has contractions up to 500 contractions per second, where the PRS is 245 contractions per second. You can go to the next slide. So really, I won't go into great detail, Jake. If you want to kind of start talking about some of these before we introduce our guest, feel free.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, kind of getting into this, so what Matt was saying, and I want to pause really quickly because Matt said he was a weekend warrior, but I want to disagree really quickly because he's actually a professional pickleball player, or he's getting close from what I'm told. So I wanted to throw that in there as well.
Please. I love it.
But again, we do push this a lot, as you can see here, some of the basic ones: alleviating the pain, preventing injury. One of the things I always want to touch on, because I still talk to people today who who've had the PRS for quite some time and they don't use the background mode, which is that main pulse suspend. That one is a game changer. So I'm always going to remind people to not only get the muscle contractions, but use that blood flow as well. And if you can sleep with it, go ahead and sleep with it, because that blood flow is going to help. It's going to help recovery time. It's going to help your injury. It's going to speed that up. And when you're waking up, you're not going to have that joint pain that you would normally get, because you're going to just expedite that blood flow. And then the patient benefits. Did you want to take this one, Matt, or you want me to just kind of run through this?
Yeah, I think I can kind of talk a little bit. I mean, obviously the accelerated recovery is huge from, workouts, post-workout, injuries, even unfortunately, even people that have to go through surgery. It's a great, easy recovery. The increased performance, it's been proven. Jake, you can talk to that at probably a little bit more, especially with the strengthening of the muscle. I mean, we have a whole, if you haven't seen it yet, Jake's putting on a website with all videos for people that want to focus on the strength training aspects of the PRS. So, all in all, it's great. I love really talking about the accelerated recovery and the support there, just because it is such a game changer. As a matter of fact, I had a call from somebody that actually went on and rented one of the PRSs, was basically at its wit's end, did surgery, did everything, could not, lift his shoulder, couldn't golf, couldn't play tennis, got the PRS. And he literally called me today and says, I don't know what's happened, because I have no pain. I have no excuses now to lose money on the golf course, because I am pain-free. And I said, you know what? You're not alone. I've heard this from so many people. So we're just excited to educate those users out there, new users, old users, on the different protocols. And that's why we're so excited to have our guest tonight to just talk about his real life stories with his patients and clients. So I think that's kind of the overview of ARPneuro and the technology. Jake, I'll let you take this.
Perfect. Yep. So this is a list that we always touch on with every Q&A that we do. And this list is not where it stops. There's ongoing things even beyond this. But what you will see is a lot of these things we're going to start to focus on. If you don't see it on the website yet, as far as like how to use it or what it can, how to treat it in such a way with the RX, or how to use it for pain relief, it's going to be on there eventually. If you drop down to like the fifth one, you see that core weakness. That's actually going to be what I focus on today before we get to Dr. Sean. So yeah, in just one moment, but I'll turn it back over to Matt before I take over here.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I mean, I love seeing that list, because anybody that's on, if you see any of those conditions, I mean, it is amazing as we, just kind of, as I start talking to people, everybody has a friend or somebody that is at their wit's end. So a lot of times people ask, well, what is this technology? Is it like a TENS unit? And this comparison chart is a good chart that we put together to educate you a little bit on the differences between the PRS and the TENS unit. Jake, I'll let you kind of dive into the technical details a little bit.
Sure. So one of the biggest components is the fact that this runs on a direct current as opposed to alternating current. And the reason that that's so significant, especially with what we push it for with the movement and the re-education of muscles, is the fact that it's the same type of contraction that your brain uses to contract a muscle. So unlike alternating current, where it bounces back and forth, that's not going to be something that the brain is going to accept as well. When you're on our technology, it eventually becomes harmonious with what your brain is used to contract a muscle. Which is why when we get it at that speed, now we can pinpoint these areas and get muscles that weren't essentially firing before to start to wake up and fire for you. So it starts to help absorb force. The beauty of that as well is, Matt kind of talked about it, because of that direct current, we also have that ability to get to a depth that a lot of these things you're going to see on Amazon for a couple $100 are just not going to be able to get to. They're just not going to, get that hypertrophy strength training that you can with our devices.
Yeah, and I think I'll take this one. I mean, one of the things that I learned and became one of our slogans with when I talked to the team at Logan University and they were doing their due diligence dive into the technology, one of the things that I came away with was they could not believe, and they said you basically cannot argue with the outcomes and the success of the outcomes. So, you know, I find that interesting. So what we've been trying to do is populate our website with outcomes from weekend warriors, professional athletes, where if you've got an ankle issue, a back, foot, you can go and hear a video testimonial from others that had the same issue. And we're kind of doing more of going to try to continue to update those. So if we've got users on this that have utilized the PRS for success, we'd love to hear it, because others would love to hear it as well. So, yeah, go ahead, Jake.
Awesome. So that kind of concludes the you know, and again, you know, what Matt says and what I say today and what you hear from Dr. Sean Coleman, feel free to, you know, ask questions. We're happy to jump in. That's what this is all about, to answer a lot of your questions. This first thing I do want to talk about is something that it's near and dear to me, because as a strength coach, and I've been a strength coach for quite some time, you'll get a lot of people that come in, they don't realize the importance of the core. The core is, I like to compare it to the stronger link that kind of, you know, sort of gives the ability for the rest of the chain. It's the focal point. It's the center point. It's controlled with upper body and lower body. If you're doing any bending, any stretching, sitting, standing, your core is going to be involved. So as you can see here, a weak core, if you have any of these issues, low back pain, you have bad balance, poor posture, or it is hard to sit or stand, and the difficulty of standing for long periods of time, there's a good chance that you are struggling with a weak core. And a weak core is going to kind of make a lot of these things worse. So if you had low back pain before and you're not working on your core, it's only going to get that much worse. The beauty of this, however, is the fact that we do have a protocol. This does have the ability to strengthen your core. The biggest thing for me is, I hear this a lot of times, is how do you improve balance? And I will say, if you do struggle with balance, there is a very good chance if you start with the core, it's going to help. One of the techniques to kind of prove that is stand on one leg. And once you feel a little wobbly, flex your abs. And I understand that's not your entire core, but that's part of it. When you flex your abs, notice how different you're able to balance, because now you're forcing yourself to engage the core. The problem is, more times than not, people are not engaging their core properly because it's weak, and the less you're engaging it, the weaker it gets. So certainly huge benefits to strengthening the core. Obviously, to improve balance. If you have good balance, whether you're an athlete or not, it's going to keep you you're at least less likely for an injury. If you are an athlete and you have good balance, every athlete knows how important that is in their sport. Improving posture. If you can improve your posture, that's going to help with your neck. It's going to help if you're getting a lot of headaches. There's probably a good chance that your posture is struggling. Also, performing everyday tasks. You know, that one seems like it's sort of an easy given one. But a lot of times people might have a strong core in the beginning of the morning. By the end of the night, everything starts to hurt. So it's also that muscular endurance. And that's a big portion of that as well. So, you know, if you're starting to see yourself break down a lot towards the end of the day, there is a good chance that your muscular endurance is also struggling. So we're going to talk about briefly on how this can help improve with that. And of course, healthy back, overall power, and we did talk about sports performance. But again, you do not have to be an athlete for this to, you know, give you some benefits. So one of the pad placements I want to show you is this first one. Now, this one requires the 4-pin lead system. Now, there are many placements. I'm going to focus on 2. Now, this one was with all 4. I have the 2 black on the top, the 2 red on the bottom. And this one, believe it or not, you know, even before balance, going through a basic workout with this particular pad placement and turn the PRS up while you're going through that workout, I can assure you, without doing a single sit-up, your core is going to be sore. Because not only are you should be engaging the core when you're doing other movements, this machine is going to force you to do that. So you're going to receive a lot of those muscle contractions on your abs at 245 times per second, while at the same time you're doing either low plank or you're doing a press or, you know, just some sort of body weight movement. And it also neurologically reminds you to do the very thing that I talked about in the beginning, to engage your core. This will force that to happen. And a lot of times this isn't happening for a lot of people. So the machine by itself, even if you're not doing movements, you can place the pads here and literally just sit down and watch TV. I kid you not. And you're going to feel this in your abs the next day. I'll give you an example. When I used to travel a lot, I would be on the plane and literally put this on my abs for a 2.5 hour flight. And believe it or not, your abs are sore the next day by just sitting there taking muscle contractions. So just keep that in mind on the value of this particular device. This other one, go ahead, Matt. Did you felt like you had?
Yeah, I was going to say I'm jealous because one of our the clients that bought a PRS called me today, and he was literally driving. I think had a 6-hour drive ahead of him, and he literally said, "Yeah, I've got the PRS right now on my abs." And this is, I'm kind of almost disappointed in myself that I'm not taking full advantage of the PRS for my abs. So I was going to ask you, he has the two pads. So I'm assuming that's where you're going with that. He doesn't use the 4-pad pin.
Correct. You know, and I will say this, the more I've started to use the 2-pin system, I actually like it better for the core. And this is the pad placement I've been using quite frequently over the course of the last couple of months. As you can see here in the center portion of your core, of your front, I have the black pad. In the back, I have it kind of going across the low back area. You can essentially switch these colors.
Jake, you said black in the back, but you meant red, correct?
Thank you. I'm sorry. Yeah, red in the back. I was looking right at it, so clearly I'm colorblind. Yeah, thanks, Matt.
No problem.
You can switch these as well. So just keep in mind on direct current, the current starts with the black and it runs to the red. It's always going to be that direction. But you can switch these pads where if you wanted the heavier contraction to be on the back, you can certainly do that as well. But those are the two that I wanted to show you. And on top of that, you know, Matt kind of talked about this. There is a workout specifically for that. And the last two placements that I showed you are the placements that we use for this particular workout. Believe it or not, even though that thumbnail is showing low plank, this ab workout is predominantly focusing on balance. So while you're hitting the core, you're just going to be balancing on your right foot, your left foot. There's certain things where you're going to maybe do some upper body, but for the most part, it's balance and core. So if that's what you're trying to improve, this is something that you might want to look into.
Jake, can you go back? I
Sure.
honestly do not remember signing any release for you to use my picture for that.
Well,
so,
we're going to have to renegotiate your contract.
Okay, good. Just wanted to throw that out.
Love it. The other portion is just to kind of remind everybody, you know, that's the workout portion, but, you know, there's certain things, you know, to kind of look at. It's always to how to use the PRS. So you want to go over to ARPneuro PRS. And then if you click on that, it's going to have multiple things. Though that library is growing, and it's going to be growing even faster over the course of the next couple of weeks because I have a lot of aggressive videos I've been working on. I'm very excited to start sharing those again. But if there's something that you do not see, please email us, whether it's coming or not. I will let you know, but there may be something that we're not working on and you want to see it. So just reach out to us at info@ARPneuro.com, and then it'll help us get an idea of like what we can, because if it's your question, there's a very good chance that somebody else probably wants to know about that as well. All right, so I'm going to end this really quick. I'm going to stop sharing this. And in just a moment, I'm going to bring him up, but it's what most of you are probably here for. So let's get him in here. But a brief introduction. He is the owner of Coleman PT and Performance. He's a renowned physical therapist and strength and conditioning specialist. With a doctorate in physical therapy from the University of Scranton, Dr. Coleman's expertise spans a wide range of sports and athletic disciplines. Drawing inspiration from his own athletic background and the mantra of earn everything, Dr. Coleman instills a passion for hard work and dedication in both the athletes he trains and the patients he treats. Having worked with athletes at all levels, from weekend warriors to professional athletes all around the world, Dr. Coleman understands the importance of quality care and personalized training. He brings his wealth of experience and scientific knowledge to his clients, aiming to help them move smarter, feel stronger, and play better. Through Coleman PT and Performance, Dr. Coleman empowers athletes of all ages to train like professionals and reach new heights in their performance, even if they're not Matt Dell.
Oh, wow.
Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Dr. Coleman. Dr. Coleman, thanks for being here, sir.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Dr. Coleman. First of all, a couple questions. Where are you? What part of the country do you live in currently?
My practice is in San Diego, California.
Okay.
So I've been there. I have my practice a few months back. So originally from Philadelphia, that's where I am now. I'm back east visiting some family, so having some quality time. But yeah, my office is in San Diego, Southern California.
Very cool. And how long have you? I'd love to get a little background from, if you don't mind, just tell us and all the listeners a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in this, and just to love to hear a little bit about your professional background.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I've been practicing physical therapy for a little over 8 years. I've been a certified strength and conditioning specialist for a little over 10 years. Most of my background professionally was back in Philadelphia. I've spent about 5 years at a sports clinic there, mostly professional or high-level athletes, and then decided to kind of take my then girlfriend, now current wife, decided to pick up and move west. So, but I felt like it was important, like you kind of said before about your experience with ARP, is taking that high quality of care and giving it to the masses. So I've always felt like more people deserve to be treated like a high level professional athlete. So that's kind of been my mission and my mantra the last, I'd say 3 to 5 years has been, where is my avenue to deliver that? And I found that the best way to do it was to do it on my own. So that's what I did. And that's how I met representatives from ARP to try to take that next level step. So I think the results have spoken to themselves. So I'm happy to share my experience with the unit.
Yeah, would love to. So tell me a little bit about, how long have you integrated the PRS into your practice?
Yeah, I've been using it probably since, I want to say around January or so, February, last 5 months, 5-6 months. So I try to, just like any other piece of equipment I have, I use it when I need it, so it's a common question is, how often do you use this or that? It's, when I need it. It's like just like any good, I guess, carpenter, it's an additional tool in my toolbox. So I will say this is probably one of the most versatile tools in my toolbox. So I use it quite often.
Okay. And good. And if you could give us a few examples of some of the, the go-tos when you have a client or a patient come in and you go, okay, yeah, no brainer, I'm using the PRS.
Yeah. I honestly, it's good for anyone that needs to move, so it's the administration of it is kind of really profound. So I found really good benefits with it. Acutely, I would say, just anecdotally, neck pain, your typical like upper cross syndrome type of, tightness or spasticity in the upper quarter. Use it on people with, whiplash type of acute injuries where you need to get them moving and you need to find an entry point into their activation or strengthening. And that window can take a long time to find, if they're in pain. So sometimes when I want to move someone or have them start moving, I slap the unit on and it kind of starts moving them for them, a little bit if you've experienced it before.
Yeah.
So it's a nice sensation. It's different from a TENS unit, which I love. And the best part about it is it promotes movement. I'm a big believer in active problems needing active solutions. Unfortunately, not everybody is ready for an active treatment just yet. So it takes a passive modality like a stim unit, and it allows an active treatment for it. So the uses are very, very wide. So that's been my point of it, though, is when I can't overload somebody or get somebody resisted. That's been my really, really good entry point.
Awesome. And so just off the top of your head, I'd love to hear a story of the best outcome that just where the patient, you gave them their life back. I'd love to hear, just give us an example of a couple of those.
Yeah. So so I've been using it early on. I used it more consistently during the acute subacute phase. I had a CrossFitter, very, very high level, like nationally ranked CrossFitter, who was dealing with a biceps tendon tear in their shoulder. And it was bad. It was a bad one. And they knew how bad it was because they had a previous biceps tendon tear on their opposite side 3-4 years ago that required surgery. So it was kind of one of those things, like they knew the road, they knew what needed to be done. They had gotten back to the high level competition, but it was kind of like, I'm in my 40s now. It's this, I'm not trying to go under the knife every 3 to 4 years here. So we started using it very early on and pretty consistently. And then when ready, we kind of transitioned off, but would intermittently use it depending the phase of training they were in. And that was as early as I got it. It was one of the first clients I used it on. So here we are, fast forward, I'd say maybe 4.5 months later. Just recently, hit a bench press PR with, if you have anybody who's CrossFitting, and bench press is probably one of the more aggravating activities, especially the overhead stuff. But the heavy bench press was for him a really, really irritating activity. So for him, a high level competitive CrossFitting athlete, to PR a lifetime in his 40s with a known tendon tear, for me, really, really stuck out, and it showed its benefits.
Yeah. And what was his reaction? I mean, he went through surgery on one shoulder and then utilizing this technology and the PRS on the other.
I think honestly, it was more one of those things where he was more or less just like, whatever you got, give it to me. He's kind of like, you explain the technology and you explain the benefits. It really is kind of like, wow, let's dive into this. So I think from day one, he was really loving it, especially just like I would do a lot of pre-test, post-test style treatment in my sessions. So, check your range of motion, apply a treatment, reassess, see where we're at. So to get those in-session improvements early on is kind of like, I don't love selling myself or a product, but if the product can sell itself and it makes me look good, then that's all I need to do. So I think those early on and immediate gains in session gave him the confidence to buy into it and trust the process. And I think that led to his consistent gains throughout. So I think he was very, very surprised. And we had hit other benchmarks kind of through the process, but I think that one and it being more recent really stuck out in my head.
Yeah, that's a great story. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think, it's very, very difficult and challenging to educate people on this technology just because it is, that's why it's all about the outcomes. And that's why, if I don't know if you heard our intro, but we're always asking for patients and clients to kind of just give their testimonials, because at the end of the day, that's really the value. It's all about the outcomes. You're either going to get fixed or not. This technology has solved so many and helped so many as you're experiencing. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I'd love to hear from you how you've dealt with it, is I talk to guys like yourself and clinics, and there are so many ways of utilizing the technology for so many different modalities. It's almost overwhelming. So, being new to it, 5 months, 6 months in, we've got some people on tonight that probably just got the PRS for the first time or short period. How did your process work going through utilizing this for different modality, for different issues and injuries?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things where, like I said before, I think the early entryway into movement for me as a clinician is always the trick, right? It's, I'm always trying to trick someone into treating themselves, right? So for me, I think to keep it simple was really just when, I had a movement pattern that was dysfunctional, a forward step down or looking over the right shoulder. All you really need to do is whatever active movement you would use to treat that was apply the unit to, synergistic muscle groups. And that's kind of how I would do it. I got, just again, those movements kind of stuck out in my mind because I had a client early on that I would use that on. That's a little trick I would use is forward step down, patellar tendon type of pain, have them do a forward step kind of isometric, slap the ARPneuro on there, and it really kind of gives them the feedback of like, wow, now I'm not really feeling the patellar tendon pain. I'm feeling this blast of activation into this quadricep group. Which is what you're trying to do with that step down anyway. It's really trying to you're trying to trick them into doing the painful movement. The ARP just kind of really gives it that real big extra nudge into a better direction. So that was my early way of doing it too, because it was presented to me in a similar fashion, like, wow, it's so widely used. How can I use it? And I think for me in my practice, like I said, I'm trying to give active treatment. So that's how I implemented it. So that would be my advice is take a simple movement pattern and apply it and pre-test, post-test, and assess for subjective and objective improvements.
Awesome. Okay. Well, another question I'd love, that's a great analogy of that. A couple of questions that I always get is, somebody's recovering from something and it's like, oh, let me, and I share the success and the outcomes, and let me go talk to my PT. What I'd love to hear from you is, from all your education and your experience and you're diving into finding the different treatment methods, why do you, in your opinion, is this not utilized by more PTs across the country?
I don't know, honestly, especially considering just how effective it was early on. It's really tricky. I would say the friction and the inertia to change things in our industry is very, very difficult. There's a lot of, because that's the way we've always done it, type of answers to questions, and we're getting better at changing that. So I think that the ARP is at least a something where it's people all the time, I take it out and I explain it and like, oh, I've had a TENS unit before, it didn't work for me. I'm like, this isn't a TENS unit. And you break it down and you compare a technology that's been around forever, that's becoming a little less, I guess, effective in its outcomes, evidence wise, and you're able to kind of show them like, no, this is different and this is why. So I think when you're able to present this new technology like that, pile on what people really need is years of evidence, which we have now, I think it's going to become more known. So I think taking it from the professional athlete end is always a good way of doing it, because people want to do what the best athletes are doing. And I think the smaller units make it a bit more accessible, maybe not for the everyday person, but definitely for the everyday clinic. So I hope that we're having this discussion in a few months, probably a few years, and it's going to be, it's going to push a TENS unit off the shelf. It's going to be in every single clinic.
Yeah, it's great. I think, I always say it is still, and maybe it's because of the lack of the business development of ARPneuro, which is me, the best secret. But I think we should probably blame Jake for that. I mean, because he's been around a lot longer than me. So I think he's been keeping it too much to himself, and why we're doing these Q&As. So I love it.
Yeah.
Jake, I just want to make sure everybody that's on, please, if there's any questions about anything that Jake or Dr. Coleman can answer, please share that. So all good stuff.
And Matt, just one moment. I'm going to put this one up right here right now. And the question is, how would you use this for inflammation on the hips? I'll turn it over to you first, Dr. Coleman. Just, my question to you is, have you ever used this for inflammation, first of all?
I have. Acutely, I would say that the blood flow setting is nice. I would kind of have to know more about the, I guess the level of irritability of the client or the patient, and those types of things to give specifics. But I'd say I've used it in people who are kind of subacutely irritable, we'll say. And, I've thrown the unit towards the hip flexor, proximal quadricep. If it's something to where it's a highly tender area or activated or irritated with activation of the soft tissue, gentle active assisted ranges of motion with the unit on. I've used it for like FAI type of symptoms where they're getting lots of compression or like that C-shaped pain around the hip. You can throw it on the TFL, the glute med, glute min. Those are areas that can be problem areas. So if you can slap the unit on there and they start to feel that activation, they start to feel that sensation. Sometimes that's a way to use it as well. But I would say that blood flow setting is nice because it's a bit more passive. So from one end of the spectrum of something that's highly irritable, just that flow, that's what you're trying to do anyway with the inflammation is not eliminate it. You're trying to regulate it and modulate it, right? So that's what I would probably use it for.
Oh,
perfect. And I think that kind of runs into that question. I think that pretty much answers it. So he said TFL, glute med, glute min. Those are pretty good placements. I mean, black or red wouldn't really matter, but you kind of feel your greater trochanter area, and then just go a little bit inside, place the black pad there, and then side of your butt cheek or even in the center point. So that would pretty much do it. Run it as long as you can tolerate. You can even run blood flow as well.
Okay, so what I learned, the only thing I understood was butt cheek out of all that whole conversation with all those. So, Jake, I need a picture where to place the pads for hips, because that was a lot of great technical language. But, I mean, for me, I would need a nice, clean picture. So this is the kind of information that we love to get on these Q&A so that we can actually, I don't want to say dumb it down because you guys are so much smarter than me, but making it simple for people like me, weekend warrior, to just go, okay, here's the issue. And that's why we want that info at ARPneuro.com to be, if you have a specific area, that way we can address it, because I'm sure you're not alone. So great answer. I understood a little bit of it until to the big words, but that was awesome. Good stuff. So
I have another question here. Let me remove this one. Did you have something, Matt?
No, go ahead.
So the one here is, can you re-educate the nervous system to eliminate compensation patterns and enhance the ability to relax, contract, stabilize, and absorb force? And then he kind of continues on here. Let's say back pad placement and movement to incorporate. So I'm guessing something to do with maybe low backs not firing up. How would you handle that, Dr. Coleman? What would you do with the PRS?
Yeah, I would say, could you go back to the question, the first question?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I would say, I think that the idea is, I think that's the primary use of it is to re-educate the nervous system. I think to eliminate compensating patterns, that's kind of a little bit nuanced in terms of like what the patterns are and how you're going to utilize it. But I think just taking the nervous system approach is kind of what you want to be using it for. As far as like the relax, contract portion of it, I would say yes. I think that's a lot of that is neuromuscular in nature. So for me, yeah, a aberrant or a not ideal movement pattern, I think would have to have layers to address it. But to create and absorb force, that might be a question for one of these guys in terms of the research. But not quite sure. That would depend on how you're training using it. But yeah, I would say that would be part of that's my whole game plan, my macro. The ARP system would be in my micro to build up into those type of treatment patterns.
Excellent. Yeah. And I mean, that's a perfect answer. A good question, Adam. And to kind of delve a little deeper into the creating force, essentially that's you turning up that output power, that we consider that almost like a weight load without the weight. So you're getting that intensity. And as you increase that intensity, just think of it as you're increasing weight on a muscle that isn't used to absorbing force. So as you're increasing that intensity, you're essentially putting it through more force. So when you take the pads off and you go through that movement again, it's able to go through that force because you've essentially been training it as you would if you were doing a bench press or a squat, just not having that pressure on your joints.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, I think I was amazed and I'd love to get Dr. Coleman, your input. As I'm learning more and I'm a neophyte into the technology, my trainer, and I'm not going to throw him under the bus right now because he's not that nice. But he had me doing some leg workout, and I bike and walk and, you know, do all pickle. I'm like, I've never had to work on my legs. So I just did some simple legs that he had me do. I couldn't walk for 2 days, which made me do a Google search on how many muscles there are in the human body. There are over 600 muscles. So I'm going, okay, I understand why I'm sore. I just had a friend of mine who is, you know, weekend warrior, went skiing, has hamstring issue, very tight. He couldn't get out of the new ski, and now his hamstring's all messed up, or at least I don't think he popped it, but now he's utilizing the PRS. From your perspective and your educational background, I mean, tell us about, you know, with 600 different muscles, obviously there's no way weekend warriors, as you get older, you're not firing 600 muscles. So I've got to assume that that's how they become a little dormant. And when you try to do something as simple as, you know, garden, and you wake up the next day and you can barely move, I got to believe it's because of that. I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, you know, even just in terms of what we're learning about the human body and strength and conditioning, I think we need to start thinking about training for life. You know, we used to think that the 30 minutes of walking on most days of the week was enough, and we're learning that that's actually the minimum, right? So I think that taking all these muscle groups, and maybe not all 600 plus, but you can do functional movements and compound movements that hit a vast majority of those, and do them in rotational planes, and you do them on one side. You know, most of our life is lived on one side of our body. You know, we reach with one hand, we walk up a stair, kind of, you know, one-legged, right? So, you know, getting into the notion of like, let me train for the things that I want to do with my life: walking, climb stairs, garden, pick up my children, carry my children, right? So I think then you enter into like the weekend warrior type of stuff, pickleball, golf. Those aren't old men sports, as you know. We're getting lots and lots of research coming back on pickleball more recently. I think people are underestimating it. Matt, I'm sure you could be the first one to tell us about how difficult and strenuous pickleball is. So I think that taking people and educating them on this is what we need to do to keep you healthy throughout the lifespan, not just when you're in your teens, 20s, and 30s. We got a long way to go. So I think that the ARP system, you know, if you can sit and put it on your abs for a 2-hour plane ride or car ride, great, perfect. You know, if you can put it on your neck muscles and get them to contract at your desk while you're doing your work. Time is the biggest complaint and barrier to improvements in my industry. You know, so if we can cut those barriers and make an easier entryway for people to get moving, that's what we need to do, and the ARP does that.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, I use the PRS. It's the modern day version of multitasking. You can utilize the PRS while you're working, and I've got a torn labrum I've used it for. And the only problem is when it's fired up a little bit, some of the emails I sent may have a few mistyped words, but you know, some are on purpose to Jake, but most of the time I'm going to blame the PRS. But that's great input. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, Dr. Coleman, I know we're kind of getting close on time, but I love your philosophy on just functional movements in general. And I agree with you. I think that's where a lot of it's going to. My question is just on a basic level, you know, if somebody's using the PRS, are there things that you would recommend lower body, upper body, as far as movement's concerned? Or is there something specific you liked? Or is it just in relation to what that particular patient's going through?
Yeah, I think what they're going through, for sure. I think I like to use it as specific as possible. So, you know, if breaking down kind of what Matt was saying before about, the workout that your trainer put you through, you know, if even just like a simple, you know, a squat has lots of moving parts, lots of components to it. It's a compound movement, which I love. Simplifying the ARP and taking it down to like, if I want to get your quadricep stronger, I'm going to put it on your quadricep and make you do a knee extension, and just make sure that you are using the quad and you're not getting any bad compensation patterns like we mentioned before. But you know, movements that isolate that specific area that you're working on. You know, I think we're in my industry, we're also going down different avenues of functional movements. For me, functional is just something that's going to get you to the next step. Something's going to bridge your gap, so a knee extension, if it strengthens your quad so that we can then get you squatting, running, jumping, lunging, that's functional for me, so I think simplifying it and slapping it on your bicep and doing a curl or your rotator cuff and doing a shoulder rotation to activate the cuff, keep it simple, stupid is kind of a philosophy I've carried into my career over the last 10 years or so. So I think it definitely applies here.
Love it. Yeah. Great answer.
Well, God, I have so many more questions. I've got so many, things that we could talk about because I can go in a million different directions. I mean, the pickleball thing, we had one clinic come on and they are so excited about the invention of pickleball because their practice is blowing up from weekend war and, people that thought they were somewhat in shape and coming out and, the movements there are unbelievable just because you're doing things that you haven't done probably for quite a while. And, and so I would love to have you back on, Jake. I don't know if you want to wrap it up or if there's any other questions. Would love to have you back as a guest at another time. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Coleman, you were 100. You were right on point, and you're fantastic. I don't see any other questions right now, but there's a lot of good material coming out of you. So we'd love to have you back on if you could. But
I'd love to. Yeah.
Coming on this time.
Yeah,
of course.
If the people on tonight,
if any.
Would love to get more info at ARPneuro.com so we can get you specific address, keep it simple, stupid, pad placement for specific injury, because with over 600 muscles, Jake, you're going to be busy putting videos together for hopefully 600 different videos at least, so we've got a lot of.
Yeah, be happy to do that.
Thanks.
Pile it up. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, appreciate your time.
I have nothing else, Matt.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
And I'll have to come visit you in one of my favorite areas of the country, San Diego. That's good living. So
yeah.
On that. Where is your practice actually? Is it in downtown San Diego or where are you?
It's in Mission Valley. So it's, just kind of just north of the downtown area, but just straight kind of east from the beach towns.
Okay, very cool.
Nice. Yeah, well, about 10, 12 minutes from Pacific Beach, Ocean Beach. That's where I live in Ocean Beach.
Awesome. And I appreciate your time tonight and really appreciate you taking the time on your vacation or your family visit. Really like it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Coleman. Thank you, everybody, for joining in.
Yep. Good night.